While the Titans of Caelid have been correctly identified as the old gods, it's widely suggested that deeper information about them wasn't included in-game, and any mystery beyond this point was never intended to be solved. I will attempt to uncover their identities without relying on cut content, night rain, foreign language translations, or marketing material, as the wildest theory that I'll put forward in this series is that we don't need them. This video will be broken into 3 parts, a series that will be my final contribution to the lore community. Spoilers. And with that, let us speak of the past a while. Torrent and the Titans of Caelid. Rotting in the swamps of Caelid, scattered in almost a perfect circle, lay 8 of the most mysterious characters in Elden Ring. Despite towering over the Aeonian swamp, the closest reference comes in the DLC, Ancient Meteoric Greatsword, one of the treasures of the ruined forges. Greatsword of ancient meteoric ore, ending in a sharp point, fashioned from an excavated shard of an arrowhead that was once part of the old god's arsenal, found at the ruined forge of Starfall Pass. This weapon speaks of ancient old gods, connects them to a ruined forge, and places them in a Starfall Pass. So who were these titans, and why are they encased in solid earth? Exploring the swamp, we get a view of the Caelid ruins and a giant crow, a bird that associates death and the sky. Before we get to the ruins, we come across a rundown carriage, carrying a giant buster sword. There's a rune arc nearby, and if we place the rune arcs of Caelid on a map, it forms a circle. Almost, but more terrified than confused, we soldier on. Caelid ruins. One of the most unique ruins in the game, but at first it looks mundane. Flame chariots, a couple of exploding dudes, standard flaming grimdark. It gets more interesting when we get below decks. 2 pumpkin heads, with solar-looking headgear, while hanging out in a cave-like dungeon. Smash the pumpkins, and we find a shield. Tricksome bronze shield depicting the face of a fire giant. Several tongues leap from its open mouth. The dreadful visage and burning flames are designed to remind one of the horror of facing a fire giant. In other words, the shield has an instructional function. Giant, flame, instructional. Outside, the Titans. A number of them around Caelid ruins, but from the telescope we can see the entire swamp, and there are far more than 3. 7? Almost. Near the isolated merchant's shack, we save a merchant from Elemer of the Briar. Behind the cliffside, 8. Each with its own enemies, items, and extremely subtle clues that, taken together, identify these ancients by name. But for now, we'll call them Fire, Sleep, Rot, Beast, Pot, Celia, Dragon, and Ocean. Notice how they're laying in a circle, almost.
You had to sign your crime, didn't you?
Overtly. The only item description we get is the meteoric ore blade, and its mention of the old gods. A Stone Age fragment of a massive arrow. But were these titans just added to decorate the swamp? Oversized set dressing? A mystery not intended to be engaged with? Or maybe a reference to Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind? Noticed by many, Nausicaa is an anti-war film that has similarities to Caelid. Superweapons are used in a conflict featuring a one-armed warlord, a conflict almost as asinine as the fight between Melania and Radahn. Consider that as either the promised consort or the Lord Lion's cub. Both sides in this war wanted Radahn to be a lord. And yet, nukes. If the skellies are just world flavor, why go through the trouble of animating this unique sunball? And if there are 8 titans, why only 3 chariots? While the community already knows these are the old gods, my theory is that these skeletons are more than just background noise. Another in-game mystery that we are intended to solve. So let's get into it. Starting with the Caelid ruins. Latin Caelum, meaning sky, heaven, or atmosphere. Caelum, Caelid, both sound like Caelus, a primordial sky god in the Roman pantheon, a masculine generative force whose Greek counterpart is Uranus, written about in Hesiod's Theogony.
Hesiod!
Uranus is a sky god whose tyrannical marital interactions led to his castration by his own children.
It's perfectly innocent. She's my prostitute.
It gets deeper as we read to find that Caelus' son Saturn is associated with time and is shown with a sickle. As we continue to examine the sky ruins, more than just the name connects this place to the Titanomachy. Remember the 3 chariots? 1 chariot for each of the surrounding titans. Surrounding, but there are only 2. The 3rd titan of Rot is connected by her foot. We mentioned the husks, but look here. a golden flaming circle that breaks apart. And what of the two pumpkin heads? Am I unhinged for thinking that the pumpkin head on the bridge on the way over and the two here in the cave are a reference to Izanami and Izanagi of their divine bridge? This one wields a spear, Izanagi wields a spear. From the Encyclopedia Britannica, the Nihon Shoki describes a pure male god, first appearing as a reed connecting heaven and earth, laying the foundation for creation. Later, the deities Izanagi and Izanami are commanded to create land by stirring the sea with a spear, forming the island of Onogoro. They descended to the island, met by circling around a celestial pillar, and had children. But after a few came out disfigured, they'd go on to create the 8 islands that make up Japan. These stories may have influenced the game, but enough dancing and cavorting for now. Who the hell are these titans? The Fire Titan, Helios. Why not Prometheus? The Visage Shield, with its instructional function, depicts a giant face and is found next to Titan corpses. One imagines Redmanes using the shield to teach recruits what to expect from fire giants. But there's more than that. This hints subtly at a gift from the gods. While it was Prometheus who stole fire on behalf of humans, you'll see that another Titan fits him much better. Helios drove the sun across the sky in a chariot, and is the guardian of oaths and good sight. Both eyes are pierced, perhaps emphasized. Helios had 2 siblings, Selene and Eos, charioteers all. From Caelid, I get sunball and chariots, more than hinting that this Titan is Helios, charioteer of the sun, just on the other side of the ruin, under the watchful gaze of her chariot. The sleep Titan, Selene. At her throat we find arteria leaf, exceedingly rare to find. A faint pulse can be felt in the veins, stirs the blood, providing an enlivening effect. A veiny flower growing from a corpse. A flower that gives life? It should be noted that almost every Titan has a smaller corpse on top of it. Some seem not to, but the pattern is so consistent that every time I found a new Titan, instinctively I went looking for what I called the keystone corpse. Helios has a sacramental bud, Selene a golden rune. If clues about Helios can be found in the Caelid ruins, we'll notice that there is a type of rot that seems to come from their bodies. If Helios' rot connects him to Caelid, then Selene's rot connects her to the Forsaken Ruin. Carrion crows attack here in a scripted ambush, another special animation. Another clue. Trina's lilies are scattered about, another reference to the Forsaken, and inside we find her sword. This confirms this Titan as Selene. Let me explain. Selene is sister to Helios, and is the goddess and personification of the moon, frequently identified with Artemis. This could be a reference to the Arteria flower, but these are found around other Titans, perhaps a hint that their ancient essence has seeped into the ground below. But as we turn back to the sword and its uncertainty of Trina's gender, it connects to Selene, who is also known as Mene, a male counterpart who she is often identified with. Some say Selene is a boy, some say a girl, but the sleep aspect goes deeper than a simple reference to the moon. Selene and her sister Eos both struggled with mortal lovers. The Greek Endymion fell in love with Hera and was cursed with eternal sleep, breaking Selene's heart. Selene. Rot Titan, Eos. Continuing on down the road, we see our first forager brood, servants of the Rot Goddess. From the poison enemies, rot dogs, rot dragon, and little cicada babies, I get rot vibes. Nearby a sword monument reads, The Battle of Aeonia, Radon and Melania locked in stalemate. Then, the scarlet rot blooms. The keystone corpse has another golden rune, like her sister. Homer associates Eos with roses, and check these out. And nearby, the Waypoint ruins continue the pattern, connected to Eos by the rot from her body. Past the hatchery, we find the meteoric ore blade, a katana forged from meteoric ore to dispatch life forms born of falling stars. The blade is weighty, known to deliver slashes of such ferocity the impact is said to resemble the crash of a falling meteor. Seems significant. Katanas come from the land of reeds, but which land? Which reed? Yes, clearly the Sengoku period of Japan, but the Egyptian land of reeds is an afterlife. And remember, in the Nihon Shoki, gods appear as a reed connecting heaven and earth, a celestial reed, meteor. Regardless, this is Eos, Titan of the Dawn, who rose daily from her home at the river's edge, and laid down with many lovers, spawning many children. It gets better. Tithonus. Eos loved him so much she tried to make him immortal, but he should have had a good legal team cause he messed up the wording on the contract and got turned into a bug. A cicada specifically. If we look at the kindred of wrought ashes, this spirit takes the form of a crawling pest. Its chitinous body makes a dry, rustling sound. Cicadas have chitinous bodies and make their sound using their timbre. From rot I get change. Night changes to day, dawn. Death rots back into life. Rot. Even metal changes. Verdigris. The rot goddess isn't Melania. It's Eos, Titan of the Dawn. This was a fun one. The Beast Titan, Prometheus. I call him the Beast Titan because of 3 key sets of critters littered around his corpse. Dogs, crows, and a lion. The humans hunt the dogs with fire, setting an ambush for them and attacking when they are distracted. Fire was a gift from Prometheus, who in doing so pissed off Zeus and was chained to a rock, regenerating constantly while birds eat his liver. We find a chained lion eating the keystone corpse. The item? Beast blood. Fresh beast blood, glinting with gold. The glimmering blood never rots or decays. Sounds like something that would be nice to have, until we go back to the crows. Giant birds peering down at what looks like his liver, waiting for it to regenerate. In its place, the windy cracked tear. A crystal forms slowly over the ages, where the Erdtree's bounty falls to the ground. Maybe his liver forms slowly, and the birds are waiting for their num-nums. Maybe this is the wind of Athena, used to breathe life into Prometheus's creations. Which brings us back to the lion, possibly the Nemean lion of Heracles, who saved Prometheus from his avian torment. Prometheus created human beings from clay. Clay? And imagery of Prometheus and the creation of man has been used to represent the creation of Adam in biblical symbolism during late Roman antiquity. Adam? Adon, a character in Elden Ring who stole fire from the fire giants, mirroring Prometheus, and he didn't steal just any fire. Flame of the Fell God. This legendary incantation is one of several that draws directly from the power of the fire giants. Releases a ball of raging fire, said to be inhabited by a fell god. The fireball floats towards enemies and explodes, setting the area ablaze. Arganthe, the chief guardian of the flame, had kept this incantation a well-kept secret until it was stolen by Adon. The fell god still lurks within the fire giants. This is the fire from the sun, a sun that falls and explodes. I'm not sure if he's the Titan of Vigor, or through the combination of wind and beasts, maybe storms. But this is Prometheus, the instructor of the flame, mentioned in the Visage shield. Pot Titan, Epimetheus, husband of Pandora, brother of Prometheus. Despite neither he or his brother having a connecting ruin, this set may reveal itself more by the enemies we find nearby, as with Prometheus's lion. In addition to the death bird, we have flame pot-throwing demi-humans, and the even larger magic pot-throwing troll. So which is it? Fire, magic, or death? The magic pot is a cocktail of magically resonant materials, called a faux sorcery in Rea Lucaria, possibly used by stones too blunt to cast the genuine article, reminding me that scatterbrained Epimetheus gave so many gifts to beasts that there was none left for humans. Against his brother's advice, Epimetheus married Pandora, a woman known for her box. Kinda. We all know the story of Pandora centering a box, but that's due to a mistranslation. The original Pandora was given a pot that contained all manners of death, one she opened, releasing evil into the world, making the Pot Titan the Titan of Death, Epimetheus. The last group were siblings, and this group is no different. Prometheus, Epimetheus, and their brother, the Selene Titan, Atlas, like the map. He's wedged between the rock and looking down at the town of Sorcery, where Radon learned to arrest the stars. Star Scourge Remembrance. The Red Lion's general wielded gravitational powers, which he learned in Selene during his younger days. He learned the stars, in a town not as old as the Builders, but covered by the same calamity that buried them both. How do I know that? Look here. The rock is poured over the top of the building, and these are just the back streets of what must have been a sprawling city. This strongly suggests that the solid ground of the lands between used to be liquid, magma from the frozen peak, confirming TA's theory. The Swordstress and Priest, a male-female combo that use flowing metal swords. Interestingly, at a nearby tower, a bloodhound guards a body, one imprisoned with darkness, eternal darkness. Forbidden sorcery of Selene, town of sorcery, creates a space of darkness that draws in sorceries and incantations, originally a lost sorcery of the Eternal City, the despair that brought about its ruin made manifest. Darkness was a punishment of the Nox, and here we see a half-buried city. The sky wasn't stolen like a necklace off some snake lady. It was covered by lava, an eruption caused by a falling star. Most depictions of Atlas show him with a giant globe on his back, and this one's no different. Atlas, Titan of the Stars. Just north of Atlas, we find Leto, the Love Titan, resting next to the Dragon Mother Grail, an ancient mother described as an elder dragon. Nearby, Fort Ferreth, a fort filled with giant bats and their harpy mothers, a fort with a name taken from Tolkien. Tuar Enferoth, from the Silmarillion, meaning forest of the hunters or wild creatures. Tuar Enferoth was a range of wooded hills in West Beleriand that rose up above the western side of the river Narog. In ancient times, these caverns of Narog had been home to the petty dwarves, who dwelt there in secret. What became of the petty dwarves at this time was not recorded, but at least some escaped to dwell in Amon Brood. Noxian dwarves, fellow victims of an unrecorded calamity. As the tower was constructed on cooled lava, the Nox may have been underground at this point, seen, comparatively by their architecture, as craftspeople of incredible skill. These would have been like dwarves to these Iron Age builders. But why is this Leto, usually worshipped in conjunction with her children, Apollo and Artemis? Leto is a goddess of motherhood and protector of the young, forced to evade a serpent to escape Hera's jealousy. Motherhood. Serpents. And considering the way shaman connect themselves to trees, it's worth mentioning that there are roots going through her brain as she rests near a minor Erd tree. Might be nothing, but the love of this titan is a mother's love. Leto. Our final Caelid titan is a 2-for-1, because in order to discuss why this is Leto's sister, Asteria, in order to do that, I'll have to add to what is commonly known about Elemer of the Briar. Hidden away and half submerged, Asteria is easy to miss. From the cliff we see stone golems, automatons with weapons so large one wonders what they were meant to be used on, and if we stay on her mind after dark, we are attacked by Elemer of the Briar, a Jedi monk from the land of Yokade. His helmet is the battered iron helm of a foreign land, worn by Elemer of the Briar. The winding, rusted iron briars are the mark of the guilty, and typically indicate a sentence of death. Elemer murdered numerous instructors and merchants, and was known as the Bell-bearing Hunter. A foreign land, spoken about in the regalia of Yokade, a treasured sword of a long, vanished domain. The copper coloration is not to be confused for rust, but is a conduit for its wielder to move it by their will alone. Swords of Yokade dance through the skies. Elemer uses willpower to make his sword dance through the skies, that or electricity, seeing as how he chose a conductive material for his sword. Asteria the Falling Star escaped her own turmoil with Zeus. In order to escape, she transformed herself into a bird. Very interestingly, Elden Ring also includes a character named Nile, and his son. Nile is a reference to Nile Noi Gialach, or Nile of the Nine Hostages, a both legendary and real-life character who was so fertile that, according to IrishCentral.com, 1 in 12 men in Ireland are descended from him. And it's very interesting that he and his son are in-game. Commander O'Neill, the name O'Neill means son of Nail. And if you count him, his 5 initial summons, and his 3 later summons, that together makes 9. Which makes Elemer of the Briar, Yokade, son of Ene Kenneslak, who killed Nile from a distance using an arrow. This is the story I heard. Rampant mispronunciations throughout. Nail's poet has a son who refuses Yokade hospitality. Our Yokade reacts reasonably and kills him. The father of the deceased, Laden Mac Beerkid, makes a joke about corn, which leads to war between Nile and Elemer's dad, who agrees to let bygones, but only if Yokade is turned over to Nile for execution. Yokade is chained to a rock and assailed by 9 attackers, but he escapes, breaking the chains and killing all 9, killing the poet with the rock he was chained to. Later, Nail gets sniped by Yokade from the other side of a valley with an arrow. In Elden Ring, Elemer of Yokade's regalia can be found in Jael Cave, along with a pillory shield. This is where Elemer was turned over to his captors, at a boundary line, as jail relates to the prisons, but the word can also mean limit or boundary line, where Elemer was taken by his father, disarmed, and led away in stocks to the shaded castle. Maybe he was here for the bell-bearing, but as O'Neill is on the other side of the valley, maybe our Elemer was getting out his tripod. Asteria, like Elemer, escapes her pursuers through force of will, and danced through the skies like the regalia of Yokade, landing here to become a wandering island, the arcane titan, Asteria the falling star, our final Caelid titan. It's very possible that I've missed one, but unless I didn't, 8 titans: Helios, Selene, Eos, Prometheus, Epimetheus, Atlas, Leto, and Asteria. Old gods who, either as lovers, teachers, or providers, had stories that feature interactions with mortal humans. Many of them ended up bearing or unleashing curses. Each a group of siblings, second generation. And a second generation always tells you one thing about the past. There was a first. Epilogue and farewell. The next video will cover the old gods in the volcano, finally, Torrent's former master. While I'll remain a fellow Tarnished, this video will be my last contribution. Thank you so much for the support and positivity. This is my first Souls game. Thanks to those who recommended the We Are Godwin theory. If you haven't watched it, please go check it out. It's amazing. It covers a bunch of things that I missed in my Chelona theory, but I do think my theory still stands as more of the emotional narrative behind the historical events of the Night of Black Knives. I don't believe Zamor died in the cold. Rea Lucaria has many characters and architectural references to towers and stars, as well as the dragons that the Zamor used to serve. Considering the Ice Rhine hatchet that we find outside of Rea Lucaria, a suggestion that the Zamor made it all the way down to Liurnia, possibly meaning that Zamor didn't die in the cold, and that like his real-life counterpart, he did actually become a teacher here. There was a question about Baal, and we'll be covering him and what happened to this guy in the third video. Answering a question about the Shattering. I don't believe Marika's children claimed their runes in the Shattering in the way that it's commonly discussed. I believe they were born with them, along with their curses, likely the source of those curses. Consider that they were cursed before the Shattering. Melania rots young, Mogan Morgott was shunned at birth, Radahn was blessed with bigness in his youth, and that was likely the reason he went to Celia, so that he could keep riding his horse, only later using his power to back out of the promise. Consider also that we see damaged runes in game. Split, discarded. The runes we encounter are intact. Take into account that Morgott survives our fight with us, and we can see what he looks like when we take his rune from him. He goes back to what the other demigods in the Wandering Mausoleums look like. This would have been considered normal, and there would have been no reason to shun him or his brother if they looked like this at birth, meaning they had their runes at birth. They did not claim them in the Shattering. And many of us have the experience of having forgotten what rune you have equipped when you pop your arc. It's completely possible to forget, seeing as how they don't bestow their effect in a passive way, meaning that the demigods may not have known they've had them until the Shattering, their power only becoming active when Marika popped the arc. Very coincidental that each of the demigods claim runes associated with their childhood curses. It's been discussed that maybe it's their curse that is infecting the rune, yet the DLC clearly states that the rot is very much older than Melania, so this isn't so much her rot as it's Eos's rot coming through the rune into her. They were born with the runes that became active during the Shattering. This may have been a part of a deliberate effort by Marika, possible evidence that she's been at war with the Erd Tree for much longer than we think, maybe after she became disillusioned. This is it for now. Thank you for listening.